Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. Hello if you're new here, I'm so glad that you have joined. It's time for my January reading wrap up. It's a little bit late, but I thought we'd do it anyway. I set myself a goal in January to read 15 books and I managed to read 12. I kind of veered off track slightly from what my plan was for January, which is why I didn't get around to reading so many books, because obviously Onyx Storm got released. So I hadn't read Iron Flame yet, so I decided to read Iron Flame and Onyx Storm as well at the end of the month, because I just had a feeling I was going to see spoilers and I really didn't want to. You know, I didn't put off reading Iron Flame all this time so that it would be fresh in my mind for Onyx Storm to then have Onyx Storm spoiled. So I got through 10 books, a mixture of dark romance and fantasy and romantic suspense as well. So I read a good variety of genres. It was an okay reading month. Nothing really stood out to me, nothing really blew me away. Had a couple of disappointing reads, so let's talk about all of the books. Just quickly as well, if you can hear any background noise, I do apologise. My neighbours are having scaffolding put up and it's a little bit noisy every now and again, so how rude. I have a reading wrap up to do, thank you. But yeah, just in case you can hear any background noise. So let's just get to, I don't know if any of you guys watched my beginning of the year book tag. Let's talk about Onyx Storm and Iron Flame. Now, Fourth Wing is one of my favourite books ever. I admit that the writing and everything like that is not without its faults in Fourth Wing, but it's like an Infinity Star read for me. The way I felt reading Fourth Wing, I just could not get enough of that book. I thought it was so fun, it was so exciting. I loved the dragons, I loved the War College, I just loved all of it. Xaden Riorson, still to this day, even though I'm guessing you can probably tell by my reaction that these books were disappointing, but Xaden Riorson is literally, I think, my all-time favourite MMC ever. As much as I have my issues with these books, which we'll talk about in a moment, I cannot deny that Rebecca Yarros has done the best job at creating his character and his dialogue and the things he says and his personality and just everything about him is quite literally perfection. I could annotate these books of what Xaden says all day long. I'm obsessed with him. But let's get actually into these books. So we'll talk about Iron Flame first. I will try and keep this spoiler free, but just be aware, my mouth does just run away with me sometimes. If you haven't read these books yet, then just proceed with caution. I'll try and keep it spoiler free, but I think that I find that difficult sometimes. Iron Flame. This book was a slog. It was 630 pages of the same thing over and over and over again. There was a lot of strategy and battle strategy and a lot of info dumping in this. I felt like this was just one big information dump. Another thing that I don't like in books is when the two love interests are separated for extended periods of time but for longer than necessary, and in the first half of this book Xaden isn't with Violet. They've sent him away because obviously war is coming and they have to go to the front and sort things out, and he was just gone for so long and it was just kind of annoying, like the going between them two and then them visiting each other and only being able to visit each other for a certain period of time and everything. Like, I just wanted Xaden and Violet to be back together. I don't mind when the main characters are apart, but not for 300 pages of a book, please. It was just long. I just found that this was like so much information and not that much adventure, and I get that it's all necessary and there's a lot of foreshadowing, and I bet if I reread it I would pick up on so many things that then happen in Onyx Storm that you probably could have realised happened. I think with fantasy books the rereads are always extremely eye-opening because there's a lot of information to take in, but I just felt like this really lost its way from the excitement and the adventure of Fourth Wing. I didn't really enjoy it. I gave it 3 stars. There was so much dialogue in it and it was so repetitive, and I just felt like I was reading the same thing again and again and again, and I just wanted it to be over. I actually skim read the last maybe like 80 to 100 pages because I was just so done with this book by that point. And I'm gonna be honest, knowing what I know now, reading the 3 books, Iron Flame and Onyx Storm definitely could have just been one book together. Probably one, 600-700 page book, but it definitely didn't need to be, how many pages are we talking between them? Over 1,000 pages between them? Absolutely not. There is a lot of repetitive stuff in here and I just lost interest with it, and I found that I didn't really care what was happening between Xaden and Violet, which just blew my mind because I do love them. I love Xaden and Violet, but I just didn't love this book, I'm afraid. Moving on to Onyx Storm. So this was better than Iron Flame, but I still only gave it 3.5 stars. Yes, this was much better. It was way more exciting. A lot of the things that were spoken about in Iron Flame to do with the Venin and the Wyvern and battle that's coming and everything, there was a lot going on. There was a lot of eye-opening chapters in here, and we were learning a lot, and things were coming to fruition a lot more in this book. So it was definitely way more exciting. One of my main issues with these books, and I felt the same about Iron Flame, is that every time we get to like a battle scene or something that we've been building up to and you know it's coming and it gets really exciting, it's literally over and done with within one chapter. And when I think back to books like Aka War, so A Court of Wings and Ruin, the third book in the Akatar series, which is essentially a war, and I remember reading that war and it just went on and on and on. The stakes were high, it was stressful, but it was interesting, it was very intricately detailed, and I was getting stressed reading it, and there was just so much to it, and it was just an absolute masterpiece to read. I felt like if you compare the two, they are so far apart from each other, like they're just not the same. Every single battle scene was just came and gone within the blink of an eye, and I thought, I've just read 150 pages of battle strategy for this and delving into like the history and theories and everything, and then it comes and goes within the chapter, and I felt underwhelmed quite a lot of this book. I will say that Xaden in this book, oh my goodness me, absolute complete perfection. It is quite literally his love letter to Violet. I feel like this book, the way he feels about her. I won't go into the ending because, like I say, I don't want to spoil it, but if you've read the ending, that for me, I really hope that book 4 is going to be just like Fourth Wing was, but obviously where we've got to in this point of the story, because it has been set up to be absolutely incredible. I've watched so many people's breakdowns of Onyx Storm and all the theories and everything, and I'm really, really excited. And when I break it down and strip down the book just to the bare bones of like the story and the plot, it's really good. But just actually getting there and reading through the dialogue, it's almost like I feel like I can tell she knows that this is now going to be adapted to TV, because if you don't know, I believe Amazon have picked up Fourth Wing to make it into a TV series. I think she's changed her writing style. It is just dialogue. The whole book is just dialogue. There's not really that much descriptive writing. It is just talking for 500 and something pages. And that just doesn't hook me. It doesn't draw me in, especially in fantasy. Like, we're in this fantasy world. Describe it to me. Like, I don't even feel like something happens to Xaden at the end of Iron Flame, right? Which you would think makes this book extremely high stakes. And I just didn't get that feeling whilst I was reading it. And it's just such a shame, because I don't think they're bad. I just think that they need a lot of condensing and fine tuning, and there's way too much dialogue. It's extremely repetitive. And yeah, I didn't love them. I was really disappointed. I'm glad that I've read them when I did. The potential from Fourth Wing, I don't really know how we went from Fourth Wing to here, which is just my honest opinions, and I know a lot of people have been showing the same opinions as me, because I'm quite active over on my Bookstagram, like on my stories whilst I'm reading, and a lot of people did say, they were like, yeah, you know, I felt the exact same reading Onyx Storm and trying to listen to it on audio and push through. Like, I am a reader that I'm very, very visual, and my imagination really does run wild with me. I don't often need to listen to something on audio to enjoy it. I think if I have to switch to audio, that tells me that I'm not enjoying the book as much as I should be. I'm just not gelling with it, and that is kind of how I felt about these two books. I love the series and I love the storyline. It just takes so long to get anywhere. Fourth Wing, not so much. It was very fast paced and very exciting. I did not feel like these books were the same. And I know in fantasy, you do get, I had it with Akatar, I had it with Throne of Glass. I do know that you get to the middle of the book sometimes and there's just so much planning and there's so much adventure, and they're trying to get to here and they're trying to get to there, and these people have been separated and then this has happened. And I know that sometimes it can get dragged out and it can become a bit long, but for me, it wasn't interesting enough for me, like in the interim of like what was going on. They weren't my favourites, so 3 to 3.5 stars for those. Then I read Midnight Valentine by J.T. Geisinger. This is a romantic suspense book. So this is her other book that's got a lot of twists and turns in it. So I've read Pen Pal and I've read Perfect Strangers, and they were both 5-star reads to me. They were absolutely phenomenal. I just cannot stop ranting and raving about those books. I absolutely loved them. I gave this book 3.75 stars. My problem with this, and I don't want to go into the story too much because it is just going to ruin it for you, is you have an inkling of what you think the twist is going to be very early on. And when that happens to me, I like to think, surely I can't be right. Surely it's something else. The plot is going to twist in a way that absolutely blows me away. I did not see it coming. But that wasn't the case with this. The twist that I thought was coming, it just came. and it just happened. And it is clever and I liked the idea of it, but it just didn't blow me away like her other books did. So yeah, just 3.75 stars. It wasn't a bad read. It was only about 300 pages, so it didn't take me long to get through. I did enjoy it, but when I compare it to her other books that are similar to this just wasn't my favourite. And just a quick synopsis of the book. So basically Megan loses her husband, and one of their dreams was to renovate a B&B and like run it as a business. So she moves to this small town, buys a B&B to renovate it and uses it. Theo Valentine is the contractor, and everyone says he's like the best contractor in town, you need to use him. And he does not take very kindly to her at all. Like, he's very unwelcoming, very moody, very difficult to work with. And they start to realise there's a lot of crossovers between them both, where she's like, this is weird, this is too much to be a coincidence, but because of what she's been through in life, she doesn't believe in fate and coincidences. She just feels like that's just people's way of trying to explain things that they don't understand. She's like, there's no such thing as fate, there's no such thing as coincidence. It is what it is. And that's kind of all I can say, really. Just read the book. I would recommend it. But if you have read Perfect Strangers and Pen Pal, I don't think it is as good as those. Next, I read All the Missing Pieces by Catherine Cowles. This is a romantic suspense small town thriller. So basically in this book, Ridley is a true crime podcaster. She basically goes around and she tries to open up, like, say, missing cases and things like that, and tries to get to the bottom of what really happened to these people. And she's really, really good at it. And it turns out that she's driven by that because when she was younger, her twin sister went missing really randomly at like her college party one day, and she was never to be seen again. And she moves to the small town. She picks up this case because it's very similar to the disappearance of her sister, and she thinks that they are connected. And obviously it's a typical small town, everybody knows everybody, and people don't take too kindly to Ridley being there. Turns out that the girl on the case, her older brother, is the sheriff of the town, and he doesn't like Ridley. He's like, what are you doing? You're dredging up old painful memories for her. I want you to go away. I want you to get out. It is kind of like a hate to love. I wouldn't call it enemies to lovers, but it's definitely like a dislike, hate to love scenario. But my problem with this is that I found it quite insta-love, to be completely honest. And obviously at the same time there is this case going on, right? And we're trying to figure out who it is that is responsible for all of these missing girls. And it was just so underwhelming. I think I gave this 3 stars. Yeah, I gave it 3 stars. It was so underwhelming because, yes, okay, it's not someone that you would have seen coming, but there was no twist to it. It's just we find out who it was, and it's just not someone that you may have otherwise thought of. And that was about it. And I just remember reading it and I was like, oh, was that it? I think with me, if I read like thrillers or mysteries or something with a twist in it, it does really need to blow me away. And some books do, and some books just really don't. I thought as well, like, the tropes in it weren't done the best. I did think it was just a bit bland. Like, I don't really think it was particularly well written, but I don't think it was badly written either. I just didn't love it like I've loved other books I've read previously. Okay, now let's get on to The Possessing Her duet by Morgan Bridges. This is interesting. I have never, I don't think, experienced a 180 in my reading. Basically, this is a stalker romance, and Hayden Bennett is a lawyer. He's a prosecutor or something like that, or like the district attorney. He's in the district attorney's office, right? Behind closed doors, he will put away people who don't get put away by the justice system, and he will take it upon himself and he will go and these people, right? He is a bit of a possessive, sociopathic kind of guy. And then Callie, or Callista I think her name is, so Callie in this, her father actually ended up being somebody who she believes was wrongly convicted by the district attorney, and she's trying to find out, you know, what happened to her father. Now Hayden is responsible for her father's death, but she has no idea. He walks into the coffee shop that she works in one day and becomes kind of obsessed with her because he has this sort of thing where it's like he'll only do it to people who he feels are deserving of it, and then he realises he might have made a mistake. So he kind of becomes obsessed with Callie because he wants to know more about her father. And she also finds herself in a situation where she really needs help because detectives and stuff that she's hired to try and figure out what's happened to her father aren't getting anywhere. So Hayden's like, I can help you find out what happened to your dad. And she's like, well, you know, I need the help. So they end up helping each other. But what she doesn't know is that Hayden is her stalker. So in the first book, Once You're Mine, I was obsessed. I thought Hayden was such a good possessive LMC, the things he did for her. Like, he literally walked into a bar, put a sharp object through a man's hand through the table, and then set the bar alight. The whole building. and walked out with him in it because he disrespected Callie and had plans to not be so gentlemanly with her. And Hayden was like, I'm absolutely not having that, not on my watch. Such a red flag, but the kind of red flag MMCs we love to read about in a dark romance, right? I gave the first book 4 stars. The second book, Now You're Mine, I do not know what Morgan Bridges was thinking when she wrote Hayden, but she took him way too far the other way, and it actually just ended up that Hayden himself was just abusive with Callie. Like, he took her phone away from her so that she couldn't contact anybody else. By this point, obviously, there's feelings involved. He takes her phone away from her and cuts her off from her friends and everybody else. He gives her the silent treatment, so if she doesn't do what he says, he will literally shut himself away in his office and not speak to her until she basically comes crawling in on her hands and knees, crying and apologising. There were just so many things that literally, that is the sign of an emotionally manipulative and abusive relationship, and I do not want to read about that between my 2 main characters and my 2 love interests. I just wasn't on board with it at all, and I just felt like he'd gone too far the other way, and he wasn't nice. Like, I gave this book 1 star. The only reason I didn't DNF is because I wanted to get to the bottom of like the mystery surrounding Callie's father, and even that was just extremely underwhelming, and I just wanted, because these are very short books, so I thought I'm just going to power through. I gave it 1 star, and had there not been an underlying subplot of like the mystery around her dad, I probably would have DNF'd it. I don't want to read about emotionally manipulative relationships between my 2 main characters, so I actually wouldn't recommend this because there's just no point reading the first book to get to the second book and read that kind of relationship. I was not on board at all. Okay, so these are my more positive reviews incoming now. So the rest of the books that I read, oh actually there is one book which I'll save to the end which was not good. So I've read The West Beach Duet by Amo Jones. This is a dark-ish, it's very like on the, if you haven't read much dark romance, I would recommend this to you, but it's a dark motorcycle club meets rockstar romance, and I absolutely loved this. I had so much fun with it. So there are 2 twin brothers in this, Riker and Ryder. So the first book follows the first book follows Ryder and the second book is Riker's book. And the found family and everything between the 2 books I absolutely loved. And I also love the setting because West Beach is literally what it sounds like it is. It's like this coastal town. You have like beachfront houses, and it's those kind of books where you have like all the motorcycle club, they're on the beach, they're sitting there with beers and they've got a fire lit, and I just loved that side of it all. I really enjoyed the setting. Losing Attraction is like a second chance romance between Phoebe and Ryder. Is it Ryder or is it Riker? I can't remember because they both sound the same. Yes, it's Ryder. Between Phoebe and Ryder, and they had this like 2 weeks of whirlwind romance, like swoon-worthy whirlwind romance, until one day he ups and leaves and she doesn't hear from him again. And then he ends up touring with Alex Monroe, who Phoebe has to go and be the stylist for. She hops on the private jet, and guess who's sitting there because they're touring with Alex Monroe? It's the Twisted Transistor, I think that's the name of their band, which is Riker and Ryder's band. So there is like this kind of push and pull and pining, and why did you do this to me, why did you leave me, only ever the one for me, well why did you leave me then? There's that kind of trope in it which was done really well, but the whole setting of it in general was so fun. Phoebe is the motorcycle club princess and obviously Ryder is the rock star, and it was just the perfect mix and match of both of the tropes. Like, it was just done so well. I really enjoyed this. I gave this book 4 stars. I think I gave them both 4 stars actually. And then this book, the second book in the West Beach Duet, follows Riker. Alongside this, Phoebe and Riker, who is Ryder's brother, sorry the names are so similar, they have this like really great banter between them, like this brother-sister relationship. They're so funny. Riker's the like cheeky fun one, and then Ryder's the one who's a bit more moody and a bit more reserved. In Riker's book, this again is a bit of a second chance romance situation, but is it Briley? Yes, Briley Monroe. She is somebody who he has history with all the way back from school, and he did not treat her well at all. Now this book, in terms of the themes, definitely a bit darker than the first book. He did not treat her very well in school, and they cross paths again, and it's all about them finding their feet again with each other, and like I said, like a second chance romance scenario. But the found family between it all, like the motorcycle club and the rock stars and just all of it, was so good. I really enjoyed this duet. I don't hear enough people talking about it. I think it's really underrated. So if you're looking for something quick, because again these books are like 280 pages, definitely pick this up. I really enjoyed it. I do quite like Amo Jones. I find that I don't think her writing is anything special, but I always fly through her books. Like, she's a really fun author. Next I read Shallow River by H.D. Carlton. Now this is probably one of the darkest books that I have read, so know that going into it. If you haven't read many dark romances or anything like that, do check your triggers. It is very heavy, and this is essentially a book about trauma, and abuse and overcoming it and overcoming your abuser, and it is quite heavily depicted and it was quite difficult to read. I gave the book 4 stars. The FMC River in this, she is a difficult one because there were things that she would do in the book that I would be like, why are you still here? Why won't you leave him? Why are you doing this? But then I had to apply that to real life and understand that people are actually in the situations that River is in this book, and it's not as easy as just running away or leaving or just telling somebody and getting help. So it makes you very conflicted inside, and it also just opens your eyes to the fact that, you know, people do go through this, and I think that this could be quite a healing book for people who have ever dealt with it, to watch somebody as strong as River, because oh my god, she is one of the strongest FMCs I've ever read, but to watch somebody as strong as her go through what she went through and come out the other side. Her boyfriend, who is the one that's not nice to her, I mean, that is the understatement of the century, but her boyfriend's brother, who tries to help her escape, they end up getting feelings for each other. So you've also got forbidden love, forced proximity and everything in there as well. And honestly, without Mako in this book, I would have found it. He was like the breath of fresh air that I needed whilst I was reading this book. I absolutely loved his character. Mako is the brother. I absolutely loved his character. There is also some mystery elements. He works for the police, I think, and he's trying to get to the bottom of some murders that have happened, and he intertwines into the story as well. So it's not just straight up abuse, but it is definitely a difficult read, but also I would recommend it. It is a good one if you don't have triggers and you don't mind reading those sort of deeper, more, to be honest, traumatizing kind of books. Then Shallow River is actually really good. I feel like I've seen really mixed reviews on this, and I can kind of see why, but I gave it 4 stars. Now this was my favourite book that I read all month. It was still only a 4-star read, but it was so fun, and this is Wolf by Paisley Hope. This is a dark motorcycle club romance, and it is probably the best motorcycle club romance I have ever read. It was so good. This is like good girl meets bad boy. She's grown up very prim and proper, and her life was going a completely different direction, and she is extremely innocent and kind of like cutesy. And then Gabriel, obviously he is the leader of this motorcycle club, and they are notorious and they have all these dealings and goings on behind closed doors. Any of you have ever watched Sons of Anarchy, where it's very much ride or die for your brothers in the motorcycle club? That is in this book all the way through to the end. Brittany gets out of a relationship that just wasn't right for her with some kind of like idiot ex, and he was going to be a hotshot lawyer and he never really put her first. So she goes back to her hometown, back to her parents' house, who both of them have passed away, and she moves back there and she bumps into her childhood best friend, who is marrying one of the guys in the motorcycle club. And she's like, Brindley, why don't you come and hang out with us this summer? You know, you need some cheering up, just come and hang out with us, let's reconnect. Whilst they're having the summer kind of their lives, even though Brindley feels very out of her depth, she sees something that she shouldn't see happen, and it's all to do with like the motorcycle club dealings, and obviously they are very much like, she needs to go. She shouldn't have seen that, she needs to go. But Gabriel, or Gabriel Wolf, has taken a bit of a liking to her. He's kind of a bit obsessed with her, and he's like, she's under my watch, nobody touches her, and he basically takes her and doesn't let her leave, but it's for her safety. Also, he's kind of obsessed with her, and that's as much as I'm gonna say. It is really good, and one of the things about this book that took me by surprise the most was how spicy this book was. It literally blew me away. I wasn't expecting it. I've not read anything by Paisley Hope before, so I had no idea what I was getting myself into. And now I want to read so many more things by her, because this was really good. It was really fast paced. There's a lovely found family feeling amongst them all in it. There's things happening chapter after chapter. It is so spicy. The tension was unmatched, and I really enjoyed this book. I honestly, it was such a good time. So it's a 4, like maybe a 4.25 star read, the more I think about it. It was really fun, so I really recommend it. I would recommend Wolf, Shallow River and The West Beach Duet. They were my favourite books that I read last month. Did they blow me away? No, they didn't completely blow me away, but they were really solid books. Like, I enjoyed them from beginning to end. Now, 2 novellas that I read. So California Dreaming. This is the last book in the Heartstone series by Saffron Kent, so I would only recommend reading this if you've read that series, because obviously it talks and wraps up some stories from the previous 2 books, so you won't really understand who people are, what their connections are, or anything. I really liked it. I gave it 3.75 or 4 stars. It was just really cute and just kind of like what you needed. I actually have only read Medicine Man. I haven't read the beginning one, which is Dreams of 18, and then I read this. So there were 2 characters in this from the book that I haven't read that did have like a little wrap up. And even though I didn't understand, you know, certain things about what they were saying and what that means specifically, it's made me now want to go and read that book. But I just wanted to start the year off with a quick read, and so I picked this one, and I did really enjoy it. Honestly, Saffron Kent does forbidden love or taboo romances really, really well. So basically, at the end of Medicine Man, Fallon is like Willow's daughter from that book, and she's like 3 years old, and Dean comes in, and Dean is somebody who Willow and Simon, I don't know if they adopted, I can't remember if they adopted him or something, but he's like a child that they sort of took on basically, but he's older than her. I think at the time she was like really young, and he's maybe like 10 or 12 years older, but they're both young at the time, and they grew up together and they've been best friends, but she's been in love with him, and she makes a comment at the end of Medicine Man where she's like, I'm going to marry you when I'm older, or like proposes to him or something. And obviously like she's so young and it's just so cute, but when you get to this book, she has basically been pining after Dean her whole entire life. So she comes up with a plan. They're going home for the summer or something, so she says to Dean, she's like, I don't want to fly, I want to drive, and it's something like an 18-hour drive, so that she can be stuck with him in the car, because she wants to basically be like, look Dean, I'm in love with you. But he's a lawyer, he hasn't got much time for her, he's older than her, they've grown up together, and they are not supposed to be together, and they basically embark on this road trip together where they have to stay in hotels and things like that. And obviously she just basically comes out with the fact that she's been in love with him, and his feelings are reciprocated, but he feels like he's not allowed to have those feelings, and obviously that's just basically where the story starts to go. And it's really good. I wish the road trip went on for longer. That was my only thing about this book, that I thought, oh god, I really wish the tension between them driving and the road trips and staying in hotels and stuff whilst they were getting home, I wish that went on for a bit longer, because we only saw about 2 days of it, and it just kind of felt like it was done and dusted quite quick. Other than that, it was a fun, quick read. And then this is probably the worst book that I read of the month, which is Haunting Me, and this is like a serial unaliver stalker romance, and I just don't even want it was just so bad. I gave it 1 star. If it was any longer than the 80 pages, I would have DNF'd it. I know that in novellas, it's, you know, you can't create a full story, but I just think the story that I think she was trying to create needed to be full length. I do think since this got released, this author has actually made this book full length. I'm probably not going to read it, but I read the novella, so I'm going to review the novella, and I just didn't love it that much. Didn't really feel like there was much of a connection between the two of them. There was a lot of questionable things in there. I was just like, nobody would deal with that or put up with that or find that attractive, or I just didn't like it. Whilst I did like the MMC in this, I think he was the only reason I gave it 1 star. I just didn't really like Lane's character. She was just so annoying to me. I just didn't really enjoy this, but it's okay. It was only a novella. It didn't take me that long to read. I just was expecting more. I thought this was going to be like a really short, spicy, exciting, tense stalker romance, and it wasn't that. So that was a bit disappointing. Just quickly as well, I did also read Phantom as an Arc by H.G. Carlton, and I absolutely adored that book. That was like a historical mobster mafia romance, and with stalker elements to it, and oh my god, she literally did that so well. I think H.D. Carlton writes stalker romances the best of all stalker romances that I've read. She's so good at it. There was so much tension, there was so much angst, there was pining. There is the cheating trope in it, but it's not between the two main love interests. But obviously you all know that if you've read the Cat and Mouse duet, you already know Gigi's story. It is basically Gigi's story, and it did not disappoint. I actually wish that the book was longer. I gave it 4.5 stars. I just think H.D. Carlton can just do no wrong. Like, she is just phenomenal. I absolutely love her. She's one of my favourite authors. Tension and the pining in this book was completely unmatched. Like, it just gave me goosebumps while I was reading it. So that was also a really good book. I forgot that I'd read that because I don't have the physical copy of it. It got sent to my Kindle as an ARC. That was probably my favourite read of the month, to be fair. Okay, so that wraps up the 12, well technically 13, but I did finish Onyx Storm at the beginning of February, but I just thought I'd add it into this wrap up because I wanted to talk about it with Iron Flame. But that wraps up the 13 books that I've read. It's an okay start to the year. I'm very excited for February's reading because I'm currently in the middle of a vlog, which is this video ends when I find a 5-star read. I've been reading a couple of fantasies. I've got some really good books lined up for that, and I've got a 24-hour reading challenge on the way as well. So I've picked out some really good lineups, books I'm very excited to read, books that are almost 5-star predictions. So hopefully February is a much more solid month. It wasn't bad January by any means, but just there wasn't many standouts for me. So I'm very excited for February's reading month. So make sure that you are subscribed so that you don't miss any of that upcoming content. Thank you so much for watching my video, and I'll see you guys in my next one.